Hello there. This is just a quick video to bring in some, breaking updates on some speaker news out of CES. And what we have here is SVS, the popular subwoofer and home theater speaker company, has released a new line of speakers. It's an update to their Ultra series speakers. SVS has two tiers. They have their Prime series speakers and their Ultra series speakers. And the Ultra line in particular, it's been several years since they've made any updates to it, so this has been long awaited and anticipated. So we'll jump right in, have some pictures here, as well as some material about the whole lineup. So right off the bat, you can see they have a lineup now where previously SVS they had a single Ultra tower. Now they have three tiers. They have the Ultra Evolution tower, the Ultra Evolution Titan, which seems a bit larger, and then the Ultra Evolution Pinnacle, as well as replacing their single bookshelf model with two new bookshelf models. They have the Ultra Evolution Bookshelf and the Ultra Evolution Nano, as well as a new center channel to replace their old one, and a brand new segment for the Ultra series, which is their Ultra Elevation speaker. Previously, SVS for height speakers for Atmos, they only had their Prime Elevation. So for a lot of SVS Ultra customers, there's no real equivalent for them to buy, so they were forced to either drop down to the Prime series for their tower, or sorry, for their Atmos needs, or go to a different speaker brand. So it's nice that they now have a Ultra Elevation as well. But the main star here really is the our new Ultra Elevation tower, as well as their larger Titan and Pinnacle models here. And you can see actually in their old lineup, the old SVS Ultra tower here, they had like a vertical MTM layout here with the two mids flanking a tweeter, and then all the way at the bottom at the base there's two dual opposed woofers there. I think those are 8-inch woofers, kind of evoking the same type of design and performance category as their 3000 mini sub, although probably not quite as much bass extension and obviously not nearly as much power, because that sub by itself had an 800 watt amp, whereas this is getting power from an external amp. These are passively powered speakers, but they call this a 3.5-way design, whereas these, I believe they are calling these more of a 3-way design. So you have, actually, rather than an MTM, this is a WMTMW, meaning woofer, mid-range tweeter, mid-range woofer, and vertical alignment. And there's a couple of interesting things here. So first, you can see it's angled in and out. This is kind of evocative of Wilson Alexa speakers, I believe is the name. Kind of reminded me of those. Or rather, there's the Chronosonic XVX. Sorry, here. Yeah, so these are much higher end speakers. They're several $100,000, but see, they have this crescent arch shape where the drivers are all in this kind of arc formation here. This is doing it more in a singular body. This is definitely much more affordable to manufacture, though this is not going to be a cheap speaker. It's not going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars, but I expect these to be in a couple $1,000 range. I'll get to pricing in a moment here, but if we go into information about this speaker, what we have here, these are 3-way designs, and they're saying that there's a 1-inch diamond coated tweeter, which that's an interesting phrase. I wonder, the old tweeter was an aluminum tweeter, I believe. If I were to guess, this diamond coated tweeter probably gives you some of the same benefits that a beryllium tweeter might, on a definitely on a much lower budget, and probably not quite as good as beryllium, but probably just gives it some extra stiffness and rigidity, and while keeping the weight down. So that allows for essentially to what you're buying here is the tweeter will be able to play louder while maintaining an acceptable level of distortion, whereas the old aluminum tweeter, if I remember correctly, it was not able to really sustain 105 dB of output, which, if you're doing cinema reference level, 105 dB are your peaks. It wasn't able to sustain that over a long period of time. This, hopefully this new quote unquote diamond coated tweeter will be able to better sustain that, be able to play higher levels while maintaining, relatively low amounts of distortion. And then they're saying it has an organic cell lattice diffuser, which I assume is this little grill you see on the front of the tweeter here. Oftentimes I've seen ELAC have this design before as well. Some people are a fan of it, some people aren't. At the very least, it prevents like kids from like poking out that tweeter. But there are supposed acoustic benefits of like they called it a diffuser of sorts to even out the treble, or maybe it just like allows like for a more controlled decay of the ultra high end of the treble. So the speaker doesn't seem as like bright or fatiguing in that case, which people often accuse aluminum tweeters of being, although I'm not entirely sold on that characterization of all aluminum tweeters. And then you have your two woofers here, and on the back what I thought was interesting is you do have your standard bass ports here, but then you also have a couple of drivers on the back. I don't know yet whether these are actual active woofers or they're just bass radiators. I suspect that they're bass radiators because I feel like they would have specified somewhere in the literature if they were, active woofers here, which they do not, as far as I can see. As I said, this is still very early news. Details haven't been released of like as far as like full specs of frequency response, efficiency, pricing, any of that. None of that's available yet. But the other cool thing I saw here is like these grills look awesome. They're fantastic looking grills. Definitely a pretty interesting design they got going here. That whole arc design, definitely probably going to be, if I had to guess, just based on what I know about manufacturing, this body is definitely more expensive to manufacture than the old, more straight edge one. And even this grill is a bit more of a complex design here, but this looks really great compared to the old design. Everything is, magnetically attached. There's no longer any holes here. I believe the old one, if we take a look at that. Yeah, so the old one, it still had those little peg, ball and socket holes there, which makes this whole design look kind of cheap, like, because they went through the whole effort of like, painting it in this beautiful, gloss black, automotive black, and then, just sticking a bunch of peg holes in here. Most of the people who are buying a speaker for this price, they're not going to be putting the grills on it. So like, you're just like, doing this gorgeous finish on and then just sticking a bunch of holes on the side just to put on a grill that like the people who really buy the speaker, anyone who's buying a speaker in the price range, obviously they care about the audio and the good quality, but they're also buying it for the aesthetics, and like you're just like kneecapping it right out of the gate with that. So really glad they moved to like a magnetic grill design so that like people who don't want to have the grills on, they still have a beautiful gorgeous looking speaker here. And this is the entire line. This has been like a really badly needed, sorely needed, long overdue update for SVS. Yeah, it looks like these speakers are bi-amped as well. If you look at the if we zoom in on here, you can see they have the high frequency, low frequency binding posts. Honestly, I don't care about it. Like the benefits of bi-amping, bi-wiring, dubious at best here. But the whole speaker line, definitely a necessary upgrade. I don't know how much of a market SVS has for like 3 separate towers. I think that's honestly kind of overkill. They could have just done like the basic tower that like people who are going to cross over with their subs at 60 to 80 hertz. They'll get the cheaper tower and it's all good. And then people who want like a real full range tower, they'll get the big one. I don't get what the market is for this in-betweener here. Usually like in-betweener SKUs, like they're either like the best value or the worst value, so we'll have to see pricing first before I make a final judgment on it. But just from first glance, I can totally see people getting the biggest baddest tower, because there's just always going to be a market for that. And then I can see people getting this because they want a tower, but they're also going to have subs, so they don't want to pay like hundreds of dollars for bass extension on their front left right speakers that they're just not going to use. The middle one, not so sure about. The bookshelves, super glad that they have both bookshelf models now. My main issue with this old Ultra lineup, as you can see here, they had their Ultra bookshelf, which was relatively large and extends out pretty deep. It's a very deep cabinet here. But then they also had this Ultra surround, which is a bipole / dipole design, depending on how you flip the switch on it. Honestly, this is an outdated design at this point. Unless like you have like a very specific circumstance where like your seats on the side are super close to your surround speakers, you really should avoid using any sort of bipole or dipole design anymore. I mean, bipole is a bit better than dipole for modern use cases, but honestly, either of them you should try to avoid if you can. It's just, it doesn't play well with modern surround formats like Dolby Atmos and DTS:X. It's just better that you go to a monopole like bookshelf type design for your surrounds. So Super glad that they have the Nano now. The Nano now, like, you could either use that as a surround speaker, just a bit more like inobtrusive and out of the way, especially if you need to put it in like a tight room or something. Uh, Also seems like it would be great just to have like this, nice premium speaker on like a desktop setup where it's like, you don't necessarily want like the big 6.5-inch woofer in the whole body of the bookshelf of the Evolution bookshelf there. So the Nano seems like a great option for that. And of course, not really much to say about the center here. Let me see if we have a better picture of that. Yeah, here we do. I mean, honestly, it looks like it has like the new drivers, the new tweeter, just a necessary update to bring it in line with the whole rest of the setup here. But really the big news to me is redesigned tower. Looks interesting, looks fantastic. The fact they have two bookshelf options and they got rid of the, they got rid of the bipole design. That sounds good to me. And then having a ultra elevation option, definitely important. So like now if you want to have a fully SVS Ultra setup, you're all set there. Kind of surprised SVS hasn't announced any subwoofers this time around at CES. I personally think their PB16 Ultra is getting a little bit long in the tooth now. Would be interesting to see them do something a bit more what's the right word? I guess aggressive for their top of the line flagship subwoofer. Not to say it's still a fantastic sub, but at like close to $3,000, there's a lot of stiff competition in that price range. So would like to see them do something a bit more impressive there to compete with the likes of who else is playing in that field, like the 18-inch rhythmic subs or Power Sound Audio subs. Power Sound Audio being the company that Tom, one of the original co-founders of SVS, went on to start after departing from SVS. So would like to see SVS really play in that that upper end again. I mean, obviously not expecting them to do like a $5,000 JTR style subwoofer with dual 18s, but just like even having something that like they're charging $2,900 now for their top of the line sub. So would like to see would have liked to see something that is a bit more competitive with the other $2,900, $3,000 options on the market now. As far as pricing goes for all of these new speakers, I can totally imagine, the new center and new bookshelves slotting in at the current prices. You can see here the Ultra Center, that's a $800 center. So could definitely see that, continuing on. And even the bookshelves, I believe they're $600 each. So could totally see the larger ones being $600 and the smaller ones being, I don't know, $450, $500. Sounds fair, considering the price of their primes. The towers are going to be an interesting one here because if you look at their, Prime series, you have the Prime Tower and then you have the Prime Pinnacle above it. The Prime Pinnacle is $900 and then the Ultra Tower, I believe, is $1,300. Yeah, $1,300. So that really doesn't leave much room in between. I can't see them dropping the price on the smallest Evolution tower. So it looks like they're looking to move up market, not really fill in any gaps. So this Prime Evolution tower, I see it just slotting in same price as before, $1,300 per speaker. Because you can't really go any lower. If your Prime series is already at $900, what are you going to price this at? $1,100? Just $200 more? Like that's less than 20% more. Just doesn't make sense from like a product stack perspective. So, and also, I mean, SVS, they're no longer internet direct. They have, a dealer network, retailer network. So there's more people who need a cut of margin there. So the prices are going to go up. So this can see being $1,300. That leaves these, these upper two to be an interesting price. I can see this being, maybe $400 more at $1,600 possibly. And then this being, man, I mean, I don't know how else to put it. This is going to be $2,000. I'd be shocked. I mean, it'd be fantastic if SVS did it, if they brought this in under $2,000, but I definitely see this being a $1,999 speaker. So like, $4,000 for a pair essentially. That's just my pure speculation at this point, but just seeing how SVS's like product stack goes and pricing and how they, interval products, they usually don't like, overlapping products where we have like, oh, this speaker is like, this price, and then we have this other speaker that's like different in this ways, better in some ways, but not in others, but it costs the same, or maybe it's like $100 more. Like SVS doesn't do that. Usually they're very logical in their progression. Like you can see it clearly in their their subwoofer lineup. You have 1000, 2000, 3000, 4000 series, and then the 16 Ultras. So like very clearly see it's a logical progression here. Same thing with the speakers. You have your primes and then you have your Ultras. I can't imagine they'll have the Ultras stepping on the toes of the primes. It's going to be like, it's not going to be 10% or 15% more. It's going to be a chunk more. So that's just my guess right now. This will be 1300 like the old one was. Mid, somewhere between 1 and 2000, like as I said, 1600, I mean. And then just $2,000 for this. So $4,000 for the pair. So yeah, definitely looks like SVS, they started as like a more like aggressively value oriented company, more internet direct. This is definitely a transformation of their product stack. Like this looks very much more in line with something like the Klipsch, not Klipsch, with the KEF R series, where their towers, they have 3 options. They have the R5s, R7s, R11s, and they basically go in that same sort of pricing scheme, all the way from like mid 1000s all the way up through to $3,000. I can't see this being $3,000. I would be kind of shocked here, but if it is, that would be definitely an aggressive approach. They'd have to have the acoustic performance to back that up. So that'll be interesting to see. I'm looking forward to seeing folks like Aaron's Audio Corner or Amir from ASR, measure these speakers, tell us what they think, because the old ones, the old SVS Ultra series, they were just generally all around competent speakers. Nothing super impressive stood out about them in the measurements, especially in their price range. But that's not to say they were bad at all. They were just perfectly great speakers in their price point. And with SVS, the great thing about it is that you can just if you just go ahead and just buy whatever's in your price point, you're probably going to do all right, and it's just going to be all around good for that price point. So looks like they're now trying to pursue a much more premium strategy than that. And, if they have the performance to back it up, that would be fantastic. But it is interesting to see this departure and a bit of missing the old days where SVS was just definitely a much more aggressively value-oriented brand than they are today. But still, very impressive, very interesting. Looking forward to seeing what comes up. Thanks again for hearing this ramble, and hopefully some of this information that I brought to you has been interesting and helpful. Once again, if you're interested in any of my home theater or audio consulting services, feel free to email me at the address in the description below. Thank you very much. Bye.